All right, the man, the myth, the legend, T-Bob Hebert, former LSU standout, off the bench, 107, 104.5, snaps, loving the snaps, whiskey and wine. Anything else I'm leaving off the resume here?
No, that's it, man. Except for what people may not know, me and you, co-hosts of the now defunct Rivals Down South, a show that nobody watched on Watch Stadium, but it led me to Mike, and we had a very, very good time doing that show together. And now, I'm just trying to make it on these YouTube streets like you and Shane are. And you just gave me some really good advice for the show. You've got me feeling all happy, and I love Mike. That's what I'm trying to say. I've always loved Mike. We both connected over movies, over the SEC. And now he too knows the pain of thinking your football team is better than it really is. Though you got to actually, my timing is bad here because you got that get out of jail free card from Alabama. Y'all's ass was on the. Oh wait, can I curse here?
Oh, of course.
Okay, y'all's ass was on the fucking ropes, dude. I mean, oh my, losing to Arkansas, damn near should have lost to Florida, but scary ass Billy Napier didn't go for 2. And then next thing you know, here comes Alabama, and all of a sudden, Tennessee is back. I was waiting in the wings to shit on you and Shane specifically, and now I can't, and that's disappointing.
Well, there's always the SEC championship. If Tennessee, huge if, but if Tennessee beats Georgia, I think Tennessee's going to the SEC championship. What do you?
And dude, and if LSU beats A&M this weekend, they'll have the inside track to the SEC championship. I mean, it's kind of crazy, dude. We could live in a blessed world where it's LSU versus Tennessee, nary a Georgia or Bama in sight. How wonderful would that be?
So yeah, you've already skipped ahead. I was going to ask you that. So the winner of this weekend, LSU at A&M, what percentage chance would you give them to make the SEC championship?
I don't know about like my percentage, but I think right now LSU's pretty high up there. They're at like 38% according to like the ESPN playoff predictor, whatever.
Right.
And I mean, with a win, I have to imagine that would go over 50 because you would have the tiebreaker over A&M. You will play Alabama, but even if you were to lose that and win the others, you would still only have one SEC loss. And then the tie-breaking thing would probably become very complicated. But with a win, I think you're in the catbird seat for a trip to the SEC championship and really in the driver's seat for a playoff spot. And plus LSU finishes 3 of 4 in Death Valley. So you get Oklahoma at home. I think you get Vandy at home, and you get and you obviously get Alabama at home. And then for A&M, like if you look at the rest of their schedule, let me bring it up real quick because their schedule looks very friendly from here on out. It's some road games that maybe you have to worry about, but if A&M wins, they'll be undefeated in the SEC. Then it's at South Carolina, which we know can get sketchy, but still. Then it's New Mexico State. Then it's at Auburn. Should absolutely win that. And then it's finishing off against Texas in a game that you may or may not need to win. Like you could almost already be in the playoff going into that Texas game if you're A&M, if you win. So make note, I talked to Billy Lucci today, Mike, and he called this the biggest game in Texas A&M since they joined the SEC.
Whoa.
The biggest game that A&M has had. And I think he's right because of the context of that setting.
Yeah, interesting. So we'll have him on tomorrow to talk about it as well. But how about this? I never could have, in a million years, would have imagined. Now, people like you at Media Days, I heard from other people, they were hyping up Garrett Nussmeier. But
Yeah.
that's what we do at Media Days. We hype up, you're hearing this, everybody's going to be great. But I don't even think it's that bold of a statement to say today. I'm just talking today. I'm not talking a year from now. I'm not talking NFL. I'm saying if you want one quarterback to win you a damn game on the line, I don't think there's any other option other than Garrett Nussmeier. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's tough to disagree with. Now, it is interesting, Mike, because if you just look at quarterback play in conference games, it's kind of shockingly, I don't know, bad's the right word, but it's not dominant. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Carson Beck, here's just the touchdown to pick ratios. Beck is 8-8. He's got 8 tuds, 8 picks. Nuss is 5-3. Milrose 5-6. Iamaliava's 2-2, right? Like, Actually, Van Buren from Mississippi State at 6'2" has one of the best rate. Like Peyton Thorne's at 6'2", and he sucks. Like it's crazy. I mean, who else on this list that we thought was going to be really good? Oh, Brady Cook. He hasn't done it. It's weird. Like defenses are kind of winning, but in that context, yes, Garrett Nussmeier, while the numbers won't necessarily wow you from a raw traditional number standpoint, it's not like last year with Jane Daniels or anything. In terms of context of when he makes these plays, whether it's South Carolina, whether it's, obviously the Ole Miss game, his ability and his courage in those big settings to come up with the score when you have to have it is probably the best part about his game. Those throws that he was ripping against Ole Miss were absolutely fantastic. And so you've seen the LSU offense, which is objectively a top 5 offense in the entire country. You've seen them kind of hold the line early on as this defense under Blake Baker has really begun to find its way. And now they're getting to the point where it's not just like they're playing over their head. Like they're actually starting to play legitimately good football. If you go in, like what's the most important part about football? The quarterback, right? So by extension, the ability to affect the quarterback and the ability to protect the quarterback are huge. LSU right now, if you filter out FCS games, is second in the country in sacks per game. They're tied with South Carolina and I think one other team. The only team above them is Boise. They're averaging 4 sacks a game. They're second in the country in sacks given up. They only give up 0.2 sacks per game. Hell, the only teams, they're sandwiched right between Army and Navy. But the difference is LSU throws it 40 times a game, and they've played South Carolina and Ole Miss, who are both top 10 in the country in sacks. So right now, the base of LSU, and it's a very strong base, is they protect the quarterback at an elite level, and they get after the quarterback at an elite level. And if you do those two things, you'll set yourself up to win a lot of football games.
Does this surprise you at all, though? Because I quite honestly, I thought we were in for a transition. No Jane Daniels, blowing up the coaching staff. I thought this would be a transition year for LSU. Does it surprise you at all that they're doing so well?
So it kind of, it's funny. It both does and it doesn't. You like you said, I was very confident in Garrett Nussmeier because of his experience, and not necessarily like playing experience, but he'd been there. And when we had seen him, he'd been really good. So I felt good about Nuss at the offense. I knew they were going to have weapons. And this is a weird year for the SEC. The weapons are kind of down across the board. So LSU's weapons kind of stand out, I think, a little more. But I knew the offense was going to be good. And I had really high expectations for the defense. Like I thought Blake Baker and this staff would completely make over this defense and be really good, but you came out the gate and you did not look good. Like, unfortunately, Harold Perkins is just not an inside linebacker, right? You're getting run all over. The secondary was very much looking like the weakness that we thought it would be. And so I had a deal where it's like, okay, never mind. After the first 2 weeks, I'm saying I got to readjust. And so then I brought back my expectations. And I said, you know what? They're probably a year behind schedule. But like you said, it makes sense. All the transition, all that. And then like Jacoby and Guillory, the only experienced interior defensive lineman, goes down with an Achilles. You lose Harold Perkins for the year. And it's kind of like, okay, it is what it is. But since that moment, what it really is, Mike, you are seeing the quality of the new coaching staff. This defensive staff is such a far cry from what Matt House and his crew was doing last year. And it's top to bottom. It's not just Blake Baker, though. What he's done with Weeks and Penn at the linebacker position is fantastic, but it's Bo Davis, who they paid $1.5 million to be their D-line coach. I mean, they spent about $10 million remaking this thing. But like now I'm watching this interior line and they are not the most talented, but they play with good technique, way better than last year, and they play hard. And then it's Corey Raymond coming back to coach his secondary. Those guys are getting better every week. Jake Olson and safeties. And then kind of the unsung hero, one of them would be Kevin Peoples, the edge coach that came over from Mizzou with Blake Baker. And I knew Braden Swinson was talented, but Braden Swinson is legitimately now one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. And Savion Jones is good on the edge as well. And I had hopes for that group, but even they've blown out my hopes. So it was a weird deal where I had high expectations for the defense. I completely blew up those expectations and threw them out the window. And now in these last 2 games against Ole Miss and Arkansas, and really the season as a whole, they've been on this consistent ascent, and you see star players emerging, probably no bigger than Whit Weeks. I mean, he's just been fantastic. I mean, here's a guy that was playing a third of the snaps for the first couple games, and he leads the SEC in tackles right now. Like, it's crazy what 40 is doing there right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say all that. Last week we had Tyler Siskey on the show. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he used to work for Nick Saban at Alabama as head of player personnel, worked with Hugh Freeze and Matt Luke at Ole Miss. And he said a lot of what you said, and he's very big talking to these coaches on the ability to have these iPads on the sideline. And he said, you give that iPad to Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples, who are top 5 defensive line coaches in the country, and it kind of made complete sense to me because I thought LSU, maybe the worst first half team in the SEC, the best second half team. And then it kind of clicked as, well, hell yeah, they're seeing what the opponent's doing and they're adjusting, and their moves are better than the others. Have you given that any consideration? Have you heard any of that? I
hadn't considered the iPad, but definitely, I mean, like I watch a lot of film, but I don't watch any film as closely for LSU because I still do local radio, right? So like I will watch that like 3 hours every Sunday, and you can feel and see the adjustments where they've lost some of the early, like, you know, you go into the game plan, maybe they've got outplanned early on, but those halftime adjustments have just they've been stellar both offensively and defensively in terms of putting these guys in good positions. And that's one thing that has been a consistent trademark of the Brian Kelly era now through 3 years has been, for whatever reason, they really got to work on their offseason process because the team that they enter this season with is not even close to what they look like 6 weeks later. I mean, defensively, if you go look at snap counts, where guys were playing, the defense is almost top to bottom different. Probably like 6 or 7 guys that are now either at different positions, different usage rates. I mean, you played 11 freshmen in that Arkansas game last week. 11 true freshmen were on the field. Even down to someone like Trey'Dez Green, one of the highest rated tight ends ever. They randomly switch him to wide receiver last week. Mike, he played 41 snaps at wide receiver. And it turns out when you're 6'7", and you've been trying to work on blocking as a tight end, you can block the fuck out of some DBs. Like, he looks like a monster out there. So Brian Kelly's process is very good at having a team get better as the year goes on. That said, when you do have a young team, I think volatility is something that you always got to be worried about. And I know Kelly's entire process is about consistency and trying to find it and achieve it and being process oriented. So you're not results oriented. So you stay present and you do the things that lead you to success. But that process is going to be put to its ultimate test going into a blackout Kyle Field at night, biggest game ever. I mean, that stadium is going to be the single greatest test of the process that I could imagine this Saturday.
And if LSU wins, what happened from an LSU standpoint? And conversely, if A&M wins, what happened? Do you think there?
I think the LSU offense is going to be fine, right? If they were fine against South Carolina, if they're fine against Ole Miss, all these other teams, like, I believe in the LSU offense at this point where I would take them to have success in any game. It all comes down to LSU defense, and it all comes down to stopping the run. Because the A&M is a pro-style offense. They do a lot of it out of gun, but they are pro-style, and they want to have Levy and Moss in that running game put Connor Wigman in better situations. And Wigman, he's the wild card here because we've seen him in 3 conference games, or 3 Power 4 games. Notre Dame, awful. Mizzou, awesome. And then Mississippi State in the middle, right? And so which one shows up? I still think Wigman's, if you put the game in his hands, it's not like Garrett Nussmeier where I feel confident like he can live up to that. Maybe Wigman can, but I don't know that I'm going to give him that benefit of the doubt. So this is the 3rd week in a row because this is the exact same thing with Ole Miss, exact same thing with Arkansas. Stop the run first and then make them beat you in other ways. And it's funny because I think right now Ole Miss is maybe the third best rushing team in the league. Arkansas is fourth. You did that. You stopped them both running the ball. You passed the test. But now A&M's the second best rushing team in the entire league. So it is just that game plan once again. Stop the run first, put it on Wigman, and then you can let your Blake Baker blitzes and everything kind of start to take advantage. Conversely, if A&M can run the ball well, like they did 2 years ago when they were supposed to be awful and LSU was supposed to be really good and they beat LSU in College Station, it's because Devon Achane just dominated that game and ran all over them. And then Wigman made plays around the edges. And so that's the same recipe that I see for Texas A&M. Is it's all about their offense to me, being able to run the ball and for you to get good Connor Wegman instead of mid Connor Wegman.
Yeah. And then around the league real quick to get you out the door, but how sad does it make you to see Alabama struggle and losing to Vanderbilt, losing to a very inconsistent Tennessee? That I know that breaks your heart.
It's brutal, Mike. It's just another piece of my childhood floating away as my beard starts to gray. What are they saying LANK stands for now? Lost in Nashville and Knoxville? I freaking love it, dude. Oh, my God, I love it. And it's almost like there was even a sick part of me because Matt Moscona's the afternoon host over here in Baton Rouge, and he's been doing this whole Bama's burning thing, right? And I thought it was crazy because I'm a big DeBoer believer. I thought Jalen Milroe was going to be awesome this year. And I'm like, you're full of shit. And he's one of the guys that he loves to let you know when he's right. And so there's a part of me where I was like, do I want them to prove Matt wrong? But I'm like, wait, no. Fuck Alabama. Fuck no. I love this. So go ahead. Let's go to take it. He's right. Bama's burning. Here's the deal. Think about this, Mike. What the last month of Kalen DeBoer's life must be like. Because he takes over from Saban back in January, February, whenever it was. Immediately, they deal with guys leaving the program. Ryan Williams decommits, and he steadies the ship. He gets some guys back. He gets Williams back in the boat. He puts together the number one recruiting class in the country. So everybody's all of a sudden like the entire offseason was this, can he do it? And then it was belief. And it's going up. Everybody thinks he's the guy. Then you get to the Georgia game and it's the first real test and they fucking pass. They beat Georgia. And all of a sudden, Georgia's in shambles. They're like, we still can't beat Alabama. Like at that time, that was Kalen DeBoer had to feel like an Alabama fan. So like, we're still here. We're still Alabama. We're still the top dogs. And since that moment of glory, everything has gone wrong. You lose in Nashville. You should have lost in Columbia. You lose. Was that in Bryant-Denny?
It was in Bryant-Denny. Yeah,
it was in Bryant-Denny. You lose in Nashville. You should have lost to South Carolina, or you could have. And then you lose to Tennessee. And really, you lose to Tennessee in just a rock fight of a game. Like you're supposed to have a big advantage there. I would have thought preseason with Jalen Milroe versus Yamaliava, and Milroe looked awful. And that's a credit to the Tennessee defense, a Tennessee defense that I was starting to bail on a bit. But the point is, over that month, you have seen Bama going from, we're still the top dog, to the mystique of Alabama being completely shattered. I mean, and it's not to say they're still not really good. They're obviously still among the best teams in college football, and they will continue to be so. They're going to be super talented no matter what. But it is confirmation of what everybody was kind of hoping for and watching, which is like, could they somehow continue to live up to that impossible standard of Nick Saban? And no, they're just a really good team, like kind of, the rest of really good teams in college football. And that's one of the great parts about this year is everybody, there's a lot of good. Like it's very exciting. It's wide open. There's no prohibitive behemoth anywhere. And that's all happening in the first year in which we get a 12-team playoff. Like, yes. I mean, we live in blessed times, Mike. We talked about SC Media Days. Remember, like, that whole Christmas fantasy of it's December 20th, and you've got the Christmas tree at the edge of your vision, and there's, like, Christmas smells in there. Maybe it's a little cold outside. You got your dog on the couch next to you. Maybe kids are running around having fun, presents under the tree, and you're watching – hell, it could be like Tennessee LSU. Imagine that, like LSU, Tennessee in Knoxville, playoff game. Like, what a time to be a college football fan, dude.
And speaking of getting exposed, do you think Texas got exposed because they ran into the ultimate fuck you team in Kirby and Georgia? And I heard I believe this is true, that, Kirby's post-game tirade, that was all because he saw Nick Saban pick Texas to win that game. That offended Kirby more than anything.
I could see that. I love that too, from like just a pure drama standpoint. I mean, look, I remember when Kirby was having to out here gaslight his rosters about like, they're saying you're going to go 7-5, and we're all like, Kirby, nobody said that. We've literally all picked you as like 13-0, I'm pretty sure. And he's like, they're saying you're going to go 7-5. Well, now we actually were talking shit. Like I said, it going to the Texas game, on paper, Texas had the advantage everywhere. The only thing I was questioning is Texas hadn't been punched in the mouth yet. They hadn't really been in a 4-quarter battle where Georgia had been in a couple, and you never know how you're going to respond when you get rocked on the chin. And Texas's response left a bit to be desired. Texas in that same boat, though, still a very good football team, still among the elite, but more fallible certainly than they felt going into that Georgia game. And Quinn Ewers now has some interesting questions to answer. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty fucking crazy for Sark to do the Arch Manning thing. You spend an entire offseason trying to quell this idea of a quarterback competition, and then you just pour fuel on the can of worms fire when you open that up. And then I don't know what to make of Georgia. I mean, what do you make of Georgia, Mike? Because from where I sit, I need one other team to prove to be able to beat them that's not named Alabama. Because right now, they still, haven't they won like 50 of their last 54? But like all 4 losses are to Alabama. So like before we can go too hard on Georgia, we need like you guys, we need one other team to beat the Georgia Bulldogs, and then we can maybe even start to say that Georgia's come back down to earth.
The only other entity that has a good record is the Athens PD. We need them to step up and take down the Dogs. All right, last thing.
How about Ra Thomas visiting Auburn today? Classic Hugh Freeze. Classic Hugh Freeze. I saw on social media he was in Auburn, Alabama. You get a couple child assault charges, hey, head on over to Hugh Freeze's program. He's got you. He's got a landing spot for you.
Last thing is Mark Poop's back.
Oh, dude, I felt so. I retired the nickname after he went for it on 4th down against Ole Miss because I was so proud of him. Right, the exact thing he didn't do in the Georgia game. He learned his lessons. He goes for it. And then classic Mark Stoops at Kentucky, he just lets you down, dude. I mean, everything. That's another one where it's kind of like the Alabama rhythm. They win that game. Okay, maybe Kentucky's back. Vandergrift's getting better, all this sort of stuff. And then it's just, or, they win the Ole Miss game. But like Alabama, they had this high water point, and then everything's gone awry. And now it looks like not just same old Kentucky. Like, how bad do you think it feels for Kentucky fans to just get their ass beat by Florida? Because that was really the one thing that Mark Stoops was able to hang his hat here on recently was, yeah, you're paying me $8 million. Yeah, we're not winning that much. Yeah, we never beat the winning teams, but we have been beating Florida after 30 years of losing. And now that really deeply flawed Florida team, which is playing better, goes in and just handles them. And all of a sudden, Kentucky's like, what the fuck? We're paying this guy $8 million a year. He's got a $44 million buyout. And I don't know where we draw hope from that like the future is going to be any better than the past 10 years have been.
I don't know of any defeat that's worse than when the opposing fans want their damn team to lose so they can get rid of the damn coach. But that's the current state of Kentucky football. Before you go, brother, can you tell my audience how to follow you, how to find all your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, I do a radio show in Baton Rouge, covering LSU every morning, 7 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 ESPN. You're probably not going to care about that. Though I would say our post-game show, Whiskey and Wine, which is on YouTube, is if you like X-rated comedy and drunk people talking about football with, just really unhinged shit, that's pretty fun. But still, again, that's LSU. I would say check out Snaps. If you have room for another college football YouTube channel in your life, check out Snaps. You can just Google Snaps CFB. It's me and Aaron Murray. And we break down all of the we just talk all of college football, and it's super fun. We're just trying to get like Mike and Shane, guys. So come check us out over there. And then obviously y'all do, I mean, just really, really fantastic work and are just hilarious. And I love y'all.
I appreciate it, brother. And yeah, for our show, our audience, if you love our content, you'll love Snap. So go check it out. But I appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Mike, you have a good one, man. Thank you, dude.
All right.